Okay, good morning. I'd like to begin by thanking my co-panelists this year, Lynn Bartram of Simon Fraser University and Steve Franconieri of Northwestern University. It was a pleasure to trip down memory lane with them and discuss the very best that the InfoVis conference had to offer in 2020, I'm ahead of myself, in 20 years ago and 10 years ago. So to begin, the first award goes to SpaceTree, supporting exploration in large node link tree design, evolution, and empirical evaluation by Catherine Plaisant, Jesse Grosjean, and Benjamin B. Bederson.
The video, Catherine. Oh, sorry. That's all right. Can you play the video that Catherine submitted?
Hi, I'm Catherine Plaisant, retired from the University of Maryland.
And hi, I'm Jesse Grosjean. I work building and selling Mac apps.
And hello, I'm Ben Bederson, also retired from the University of Maryland. We are so honored to receive this award and also super happy to see each other after so long.
Yes. So SpaceTree was done under a small contract with Chevron. The goal was to demonstrate to management the potential of information visualization. Half of the project consisted of using existing commercial tools like Spotfire or TreeMap from the lab with sampled Chevron data. But of course, we wanted to develop also a new visualization. So as we were starting to understand Chevron's need, Chevron's merged with Texaco. So suddenly, every employee was looking at the org chart of the much larger company, and this generated the typical problem of a large tree that does not fit on the screen, with the need to easily read the names of the leaf nodes as well as internal nodes. Let's watch a few seconds of a demo. So here is a big oil company with the different branches. When there is no room, an icon gives you an idea where the big branches are. So I could explore support function, IT manager. If there is room, multiple layers will open. But if I want to explore this branch now, there is no room. So you'll see it will first shrink all this information, recenter, and expand the new branch. So shrink, recenter, expand. Shrink, recenter, expand. And if I want to see where the scientists are, I type, and I could see they are here. Oh, there is one here too.
I had been working on zoomable user interfaces for several years. I was always motivated by rich interactivity, and I was really concerned about how limiting screen size was. While we see zooming in so many places now, such as mobile home screens and maps, you have to remember back in the 2000s, and certainly in the 1990s when I started working on zoomable user interfaces, it was not common at all. I had been working on platforms at the time to make it easier to develop those ZUIs, starting with Pad++, and then the next system was called Jazz, and finally ended up with Piccolo.
I joined the lab in 2001 to work on Ben's Jazz toolkit. Jazz could build unique ZUI interfaces, but was somewhat complex to use. Ben and I started working on a new toolkit, Piccolo, to remove this complexity. The goal was to have the same feature set as Jazz, but with a simpler design that was easier for programmers to use. SpaceTree was the first big project I built using Piccolo, so it was very encouraging that it all worked out.
We knew right from the beginning that we wanted a way to graphically explore large hierarchies, but it took many versions to get the representation and animation right. The paper describes a number of those things and how we reached the multi-step design for the animation. For example, we tried making the triangles of the inner nodes rich enough to give a sense of depth and breadth of the subtrees. But user testing showed that users didn't learn to use that much detailed information. We also wanted simple single-click access to nodes and subtrees and to integrate search as well. The paper describes a number of the things we considered and how we reached the multi-step design for the animation.
So it was all cool and glitzy, but to evaluate, we compared SpaceTree to Microsoft Explorer and the hyperbolic browser, a tree visualization that came out of Park in '96. I remember that this was the first time I realized that I could skew the overall results the way I wanted by picking tasks that favored one tool or the other. So I tried really hard to think that of what type of task or measure would favor each of the tools and give results only at the task level. For example, we thought that our multi-step animation was good to help you remain oriented. So we included a task that asked users to re-find or find again something they had found before. We also included tasks that would likely favor the other tools and observe carefully what people did. We didn't try to show that one tool was better than the others, but rather where each approach made the most sense.
We continued developing the ideas from SpaceTree in a number of following systems, including scaling it to support over 100,000 nodes in biological phylogenetic trees. And it was licensed for commercial use about a dozen times. But I think perhaps the most interesting thing, looking back on this 20 years later, is why even as the hierarchies that we look at grow larger and larger, the tools that most people use to manage them remain very, very simple and do not tend to use the rich features like the triangles in SpaceTree. I leave it to you to ponder why that may be.
You can find the video, the software, the experiment material online at this address, or just Google SpaceTree, Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'll just remark that the awards committee felt that this paper represented a more modern style of paper that we see more frequently now in its reflections on the design process and also its rigorous experimental methodology. So, moving on.